Hey guys, I just want to stop in and say that there is a massive trigger warning on this video. We are going to be talking about severe neglect of a disabled person, and it is horrific. So if you don't feel like this is the video for you, please do not push yourself. I will not be upset if you need to skip this one. Hey guys, it's ayebeepee and welcome back to my channel. Got my bachelor's in criminal justice and a minor in psychology, and I want to say that for the next 72 videos because I'm just so proud of myself. On top of that, I am a board member of a nonprofit called Voices for the Silenced, and what we do is we help missing persons, family, and friends that are looking for them with resources any way we really can. We have set up searches, we have done social media, we've put up billboards. So if you need anything like that, please get a hold of us and we'll do what we can. And welcome back to my Crimetober series. Today we are here to talk about Lacey Fletcher because I'm just disgusted by this case, and it's going to be really hard for me not to show my feelings towards her parents in this, but I'm going to do the best I can. So let's just get right in. Lacey Ellen Fletcher was born on November 25th, 1985. She was 36 years old at the time of this case, and she lived in Slaughter, Louisiana. This was about 30 minutes from Baton Rouge, and she did live with her parents. They all moved there in 1995. And it was a 17,000 square foot house. It was cute and it was on a couple of acres. Her father was Clay Fletcher and he was 64 at the time of all this. And he was an officer at a nonprofit, Baton Rouge Civil War Roundtable. And then her mother, Sheila Fletcher, was also 64. Now, she did work for the police and county clerk in Baker, Louisiana. And she also was the assistant to the city prosecutor in Zachary, Louisiana. And these two were major citizens in their community. Her parents seemed completely normal, and they went to church regularly, and they were also holding positions within the church. And then to get back to Lacey, she was just so kind and sweet. She had an amazing memory and loved really cool facts. She was very opinionated and she did obsess over things. She had been diagnosed with social anxiety and severe Asperger's syndrome, which for people that don't know is a form of autism. Now, she attended the Brownsfield Baptist Academy until about the 9th grade, and then her family decided to homeschool her. She did keep up with hobbies during this time. She loved country music. She loved Mariah Carey, Disney movies. She was obsessed with the rides at Disney World. She played sports and she thought emailing her friends was so much fun. And she did love hanging out with her friends too. And during her childhood, she seemed like a perfectly normal kid. She played with all the children within her neighborhood, but when she turned 14, things just got noticeably different. And that's really when the signs of her autism started shining bright. She just wasn't maturing as fast as all of her friends, so she did start losing touch with them because even though it wasn't her fault that she wasn't developing mentally as fast as them and keeping up with, doing things that teenagers want to do, but it also was just something that caused them to grow apart because she wanted to have sleepovers and watch Disney movies all night when, we all know what teenagers do, right? This is when Lacey kind of started becoming a recluse. She really only talked to her family and saw her family, and she refused to leave the couch. The weird thing was that Clay would tell everyone, she's just fine, she's just hanging out inside, or he would quickly change the subject, and he would never let people really ask questions about Lacey. Lots of neighbors were under the impression that Lacey got married or went to college and that she just, was growing up. And also there was an alarming amount of neighbors who didn't even know that Sheila and Clay had a daughter. But Lacey just was so scared to leave this couch. She would even use the bathroom in a towel so she wouldn't have to leave the couch, or she would just do it right on it and clean it up herself. And her social anxiety was clearly at an all-time high if she wouldn't not only leave her house, not only leave her living room in her house, but she refused to leave this piece of furniture in her living room in her house. It was so bad that the last time any doctor saw Lacey was when she was 16. 20 years she went without seeing any doctor. It was clear her mental capacity was deteriorating, and her parents did nothing about it. They actually claimed she didn't go for 20 years because she didn't need to. There was nothing wrong. She was never sick. And they also said that Lacey just refused to go. That would mean she would have to leave this couch, and she just was not accepting that. Now, there is documents that show that in 2010, her parents actually went to Lacey's doctor by themselves. They told them what was going on. She was refusing to leave the living room, let alone this piece of furniture. And her doctor pretty much told them to take her to the hospital now. But Lacey was never admitted. Now, at the time of all this, the neighbors did claim that the last time they remember seeing Lacey was 15 years ago. Most of them say they don't really remember her past 2011 to 2012. And that does add up to pretty much when Lacey refused to start going to the doctor or anything. So again, she was just refusing to leave. There was talk about putting Lacey into a mental facility, but Lacey was not going to let that happen. And ultimately, she never ended up going. But the weird thing is that Sheila and Clay posted on Facebook all the time. They were always out on vacations, doing things, dinners, hanging out with friends, posting all these pictures. But the last time Lacey was posted on their Facebook was around 2011. Sheila does claim in fall 2021, Lacey's eating severely slowed, to the point that on January 2nd, 2022, Sheila claims that all she ate was half of a sandwich and Cheetos for the day. Now, Allegedly, a neighbor did come over to the Fletcher's house and saw Lacey through a window and was extremely concerned. They told Sheila, "You need to call 911 now. She needs help." And it's thought that this guy said, either you call or I'm gonna call. They never really got into what they saw, but how Lacey was found was horrific. So I'm just gonna put another trigger warning right here because this is horrible. I can't even think of a bad enough word. I guess we'll go with horrible right now. So Sheila ended up calling 911 at 2 a.m. on January 3rd, 2022. She said that Lacey was not breathing, and she claimed to last see Lacey alive around 10 p.m. that night. But when the emergency services got there, it was clear that Lacey was dead and had probably been dead for a minute. Now let's get into the crime scene. Every single source I had talked about the smell when they walked in and just how incredibly horrific the smell was walking into this house. Right into the living room. But they found Lacey sitting upright on a couch, but she was like shoulder deep in the couch because the couch had completely sunken in. So like where the cushions were was where she was sitting, like into it. She was leaning to the left with her eyes open, her mouth was open, and her arms were bent upwards like towards her neck, and she was sitting cross-legged with her feet kind of tucked under her. I'm going to try to get into this description of Lacey without getting absolutely irate, but bear with me. Lacey was 96 pounds when she was found. She was completely emaciated. She was partially naked with only a t-shirt on that was pulled up over her breasts. Someone explain that one to me. It was absolutely clear she hadn't showered in a very, very long time. Her hair was completely matted and knotted, and there were insects all through her hair. There were sores all over this girl, all over her face, that were deep red splotches. And underneath, like, her legs and like butt and everything was nothing but ulcers that were rotten to the bone, literally to the bone. And she had fecal matter all over her. She had it on her face, she had it on her chest, she had it on her arms, stomach, and there were maggots all over her. Her skin had melted to the couch itself, which is just a horrific picture. In that like crater that she was sitting in, shoulder deep in the couch, was just filled with feces and urine just all over the place. And it was clear that she had used the bathroom there so much and had sat there so long that that the cushions and the upholstery slowly wore away. It wasn't like she was cut this section of the couch fit in. No. It was the wear and tear of her just using the bathroom right there and sitting there for a long time. That whole part is really hard for me to get through, and I cover some horrific cases. That one's hard. You know, that one's hard. So the floor underneath the couch was rotting away pretty much from all the urine and feces that had left the couch right onto the floor underneath her. There were insects and rodents all over this couch. And the part that chaps my ass more than any of this is that the fact that the rest of the house was completely spotless and clean and nice, and they just never cleaned their daughter up. And clearly Sheila and Clay had no answers to how this happened while emergency services were there. They just kind of stood there and had no explanation at all. It's horrific. Like, horrible. Let's get into the investigation before I lose my temper. It took months to wrap up Lacey's investigation. Her family said that Lacey was of sound mind, that she made her own decisions, and that she could take care of herself the way she wanted to. They also claimed that she never complained about her sores that were rotted to the bone. Never complained about them. They reiterated that she refused to leave the living room, specifically that couch, and that they brought her meals there. They even put a gray toilet next to the couch, but she refused to get off the couch, so she never used it. There was a pile of clothing on the other side of the couch that Lacey could change, and there was also 2 boxes of children's DVDs near her that I'm assuming they would put on movies for her and she would be able to pick out. Sheila claimed she cleaned these sores regularly, and there was a coffee table in front of her that had like talcum powder, bottles of lotion, nasal spray, so like it was clear that she was getting like some care. But if you're cleaning these sores regularly and you're starting to see bone, maybe say kind of what your daughter's thinking right now and take her to the hospital. And I realize, like, mentally that could really mess her up, but like the answer couldn't have been letting her rot on her couch. Now the coroner, Dr. Bickham, said that she most likely sat there for 12 years. 12 years without ever getting up. And that is how she melted to the couch, because she literally never got up for 12 years. That it ended up causing immobility. Now, there's a lot of sources that talk about Lacey having locked-in syndrome, which is like a rare neurological disorder that shuts down pretty much all your voluntary muscles except for your eyes. Like complete paralysis. Now, she was never technically diagnosed with this, and there is something I'll talk about in just a minute that kind of proves she didn't have locked-in syndrome, but I will say the coroner does not believe that Lacey had this. Usually locked-in syndrome comes from like a brain or spinal cord injury, but it didn't seem like her parents physically abused her. It was more they just completely neglected her. She didn't show signs of a spinal or brain injury that would have caused this either. Now, when they got done with the autopsy, she was positive for COVID-19, the girl that never saw anybody but her parents. So that's going out on all these events and parties and vacations, just bringing COVID back to their daughter. And what was found in her stomach that she had been eating was her own feces and the sofa cushions. No actual food. So you remember them saying they brought her 3 meals a day to her couch? Now, this is why they think that she didn't have locked-in syndrome, because there would be no way for her to be able to even move to get sofa cushions or her own feces into her mouth and digest it. Unless, I guess, her family did it. But again, like, her family didn't seem to physically abuse her, just like severely neglect her. Now, the contributions to her death, because there was quite a lot, the top one being severe medical neglect, chronic malnutrition, acute starvation, immobility, acute ulcer formation, osteomyelitis, which is a bone infection, from the ulcers rotting down to the bone, which all of this ended up leading to sepsis. And it seemed from this autopsy that she was dead for 24 to 48 hours before they got there, which means that the neighbor who allegedly saw her through the window had seen her already passed. The coroner said this was the most horrific thing he's seen. He couldn't eat for a week after seeing Lacey and knowing what happened to her, and he cried all the time for weeks after this. Her parents were arrested, obviously, in early May 2022. They were arrested for second-degree murder from severe medical neglect. And the evidence that they had to show to the jury was so gruesome and just graphic that they had to have like mental health medical staff readily available, because these people were not able to handle it very well. When going over the timeline in this case, the jurors just stared in shock and would gasp or just be completely silent, and it was just a really hard case to be a juror on. Their bond was set at $300,000 each, which they both ended up paying, and District Judge Betsy Jones threw out their conviction. Threw it out on May 8th. Said there was defective language in the charging affidavit, and that there was 6 small but worthy things to not have specific intent. And the court agreed with the district attorney, Stephen Moore, and they had to throw it out. But that's okay, because the parents were rearrested in June this year, and they were re-indicted on the murder charge, and they are hoping for a new trial by the end of this year. But I haven't heard anything about the new trial, so it's probably not going to happen this year. Is this not the craziest thing you've ever heard? How does a parent just neglect their kid like that, Like, holy crap. And poor Lacey, this probably could have been helped with just some mental health attention, like, why not admit her? I know how hard it would have been to get her there. I don't know if she got violent. I don't know why her family never pushed it, but what a tragedy. And then, like, her parents just posting themselves on all these really cool events and adventures and vacations. If you looked at their Facebook, Lacey didn't even exist anymore. And how in the world are the police in your house looking at your kid? I mean, I know she was 36, but still their kid, their baby in this condition, and they just have no explanation to keep the rest of the house so incredibly clean except for where your kid is. How did they live like that? I mean, I know you can get used to smells, but like rotting flesh? I don't know, but I do think these parents are a piece of shit. I really, really hope they get exactly what they deserve in court. And it's horrible to know she had something that could have been fairly manageable if her family would have just put some time into it and didn't just listen to their daughter. Like, clearly she was in a mental health crisis, but like as your parents and as your guardians, because they still had guardianship of her. They were her primary caretaker. And that is all I have for Lacey Fletcher. Thank you guys so much for watching. Like and subscribe for me, and hit that notification button. That way you're notified the next time I upload. There is still a GoFundMe for Crystal Young. If you haven't already, go watch that video because it'll explain to you why her mom needs this PI so bad. And there are still stickers for sale. They're $2 each, and all proceeds go to the Cold Case Foundation, so it is for a good cause. And thank you guys again so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.